Greetings to you, our viewers. My name is Bertha Nherera, and I'm working with Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, Pelham, Zimbabwe. In our episode today, we are going to talk about mechanization, markets, and value addition in My Food is African campaign. My Food is African campaign is a campaign which is a continental campaign being undertaken in 13 African countries, that is including Zimbabwe. It's being implemented under the auspices of Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. And our main objective for My Food is African is really to raise awareness on the consumption of our traditional foods. And more than just raising awareness, we really want to see a change in practice of actually consuming our traditional foods, particularly for our young people. So today I'm joined by my brother here, Mr. Charles Dhewa. I will let you introduce yourself, Mr. Dhewa.
Thank you very much. My name is Charles Dhewa. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of an organization called Knowledge Transfer Africa, commonly known as Mukambo in the market. We are working together with Pelham, Zimbabwe, in implementing My Food is African campaign, coming from the market side.
Okay. So, Mr. Dhewa, would you share with us how value addition, markets, and mechanization are interlinked?
Thank you very much. Value addition is a very important step, especially when we talk about African food. We could say historically our indigenous food has not been taken seriously in terms of value addition. Value addition is still rudimentary, processing in households. If you talk about small grains, there isn't enough machinery or processing that is happening. Much of the processing is being done to exotic food like maize, wheat, and others. So we really see some gaps there. Value addition is very important. Mechanization is missing. Markets, much of the food is found in mass markets like Mbare, Masakuva, Bobulawa, and others, in other markets in other cities. So really, this is what is happening. So we see that there's quite some gap. In as much as we're trying to promote our campaign, we think markets, value addition, and mechanization need a lot of attention at policy level as well.
Okay, you spoke about markets. How do you see markets bringing in that diversity of our traditional foods?
Yes, the markets that we're talking about are what are called territorial markets in some countries. These are mass markets where everyone goes to buy some food. They are characterized by so much diversity. We are just going to compare them with supermarkets and others. Supermarkets are mainly driven by foreign food, processed foods, validated food if you want, which is more like industrial produced food. But then these markets that we're talking about are characterized by so much diversity. Some of them are local, district markets, provincial markets, and others, where ordinary people go to get their food. This is where we think the campaign should really have an impact, because that's where the majority of the people get their food, even young people. Some of the people who don't even know traditional food, they can go to our mass markets to get that food. It's also fresh food as well as diverse, although there are issues to do with the infrastructure, so that really the food also is need for consumers who can buy.
Okay. You are speaking of infrastructure. I wanted you to give us more information in terms of how you think these markets can really be improved so that there is access of the food that you are talking about.
Yes, in terms of a campaign, so far we can see that infrastructure in our mass markets, in terms of sheds, maybe even facilities that are needed, like warehousing, is missing in most markets. There is also water issues to do with sanitation and even parking for vehicles, so that really people who go there, they can be able to park properly and be able to buy what they want. So we also imagine that we could even have some processing happening at markets. This could be possible if we take the campaign seriously. Of course, the resources are required for us to do that. At the moment, the mass markets, they don't have those kinds of infrastructures that really are necessary for us to really promote our African food. Our food is competing with the exotic food, and in some cases being out-competed because of lack of infrastructure. When it rains, during the rainfall season, our food is exposed to so much impurities, damage, and other things that are really not good. So really we think infrastructure is very key. As we talk about the campaign, We think that is why we need to bring in local authorities, government, and even development partners who are putting money in production. We think they can also help with us fixing the infrastructure around the markets.
Okay. You're talking of these mass markets. What about our supermarkets? We have fruits here like Masau. I haven't seen Masau, maybe for example, at same level village there in our spas or okay. I mean, what could be the reason? If someone wants to access, it's like they have to go to Mbari. But what about if someone is living in the northern suburbs, maybe someone is in Borodale, Greendale, maybe they are not able to go to Mbari. What is it that can be done so that people can really access maybe fruits like our indigenous fruits?
I guess that's one of the main thrusts of the campaign, to sort of really talk to people who own supermarkets to say, you can't continue bringing in food from outside.
Yes.
Why don't we have our own indigenous food there? So really it's about engagement, talking to them. I'm sure you understand that supermarkets have a colonial heritage. They are coming from other countries. They are being
Yes.
pushed. It's a supermarket model, some of it connected with the shopping malls. They are not used to our food. Our food has got a certain way that needs to be treated. For instance, they have not been processing our indigenous foods, for instance. They are not processed, so they think there's a lot to do with packaging and others. And usually supermarkets, they push their own brands. There are people who are pushing specific commodities in supermarkets, usually processed and packaged. So really with lobbying and campaigns, I'm sure shortly we'll be having our own food there, like a Matowe, Masawi, as you say, in our supermarkets, which will be very interesting.
Yeah, it will be very interesting indeed. Coming to the issue of value addition in agriculture, how do you think we can have value addition improved just in general, particularly when we are talking about our traditional foods?
Yes, I see value addition in two parts. The first one is to just preserve commodities, so that when they are in bulk, in supply, in more supply, like during harvesting periods when we have a lot of commodities available, like our indigenous vegetables, Nherera and others. There are times when they are just so abundant that they need to be value added or just preserved. We need technology to preserve our food. We may not really boil and convert it into dried vegetable. We are imagining other ways of preserving as it is. Why can't Nherera be preserved as green as it is, so that in 10 months down the line, one who wants it can get it? So I think that's where we think our innovation hubs should come in, our universities, to help with value addition. Let's have more people value it, not just the usual mfushwa that we are used to. We can broaden it. It's more about product development. When we do that, young people can also be able to market those commodities. We have young people in the diaspora right now who look for those indigenous food, they can find it. So really there's scope there. Then the other part is the processing, which I'm sure is already happening in terms of small grains. We have mahewu, different types of mahewu. Now we have mukumbi being produced in Masvingo, Mwenezi, from our indigenous fruits. So really, this needs to be promoted in a big way. So I think already some mileage is being gained, but more should be done as we really roll out the campaign.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhewa, for that. And I think it's very exciting for us, and we are calling on our young people to be innovative, to come up with ideas of really improving our processing. I've heard that they do complain that sometimes it takes a long to cook maybe some food like mtakura, where you have to boil nyimo or nyemba for a long time. But I've seen some innovation that sometimes it's being frozen, they boil, freeze, and then they sell, and it's making it accessible. So thank you very much, Mr. Dhewa. We're coming to the end of our first segment. Welcome back, our viewers, to our second segment, where we are discussing about the issues of markets, value addition, and mechanization under My Food is African. How is farm mechanization and value addition impacting on the quality of traditional foods in our food systems?
Thank you very much. What's happening is that at the moment, farm mechanization is focusing on maize, wheat, and other mainly industrially produced commodities that have received so much support, which means mechanization really for smallholder farmers who are doing small grains, our indigenous vegetables is missing. So really, that's an area of innovation that we think needs to really be focused on by development partners as well as government. So really, it starts with production, obviously. If mechanization is done well at production, it increases volumes as well. So that when we have more buyers who are interested in the food, they can get it in volumes. At the moment, when there's no mechanization, it becomes difficult to trigger demand from other countries that can take huge volumes. For instance, China, what we produce in Zimbabwe is just not even enough for breakfast for China. Can you imagine? It means if we're going to export and make money from our indigenous food, we need volumes. That calls for mechanization, which at the moment is missing. So we think, in as much as we are trying to import equipment from Belarus and other countries, it's very important for our local engineers to adapt our equipment, which is really ideal for on producing our small grains as well as even harvesting, which is a bigger issue. At the moment, harvesting of pearl millet, sorghum, and finger millet is a nightmare, including even brown rice. So really, there is an issue there around mechanization, which needs to be taken care of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dhewa. I just want to add more to what you are saying. You see our small grain here, which is the finger millet. It's very small, and there's a tendency for this grain that when farmers are processing it, usually they have to go Paruare, and then they have to use these sticks. And in doing that, it collects some grit. So when now we have got the meal from finger millet, then it has got this grit. So I really agree with you about the issue of really investing, particularly the threshers for farmers. I do also work with the smallholder farmers, and I've had requested to actually export finger millet, but I'm not able to export finger millet until, and I'm happy with the quality. So I really hope as a country we'll be able to invest in mechanization. Then coming to how best can we further integrate the three into our local food production and beneficiary schemes so that people can consume indigenous healthy food that is grown also without harming the environment?
Yes, one way is to use the market. For instance, we have a very young population, young people who also need to know about our food. The best way of swaying them away from fast foods is to really improve the quality of our food. Like you were saying, improving the quality of small grains, improving the quality of vegetables. Many young people come to buy food from mass markets like Mbare. They complain that unorumira, they say there's some soil in the vegetables as well as in the grains. So that's a quality issue that we need to work on. Once we improve quality, then we have more demand for food.
Yes.
That's the market part. And more buyers with money are willing to really come and buy from our mass markets. That is if we improve the quality, as well as the infrastructure issue that we're talking about. People who have got money, they don't want to be harassed by middlemen who are just saying, park here, and there. They really want order. So we need to improve our infrastructure, our market environment, so that really we do this very well. And then that will trigger mechanization, because we think innovation is still lacking. We need to mechanize in favor of our indigenous food. If it means even having a department that focuses on indigenous food only in the Ministry of Agriculture, that will go a long way, because we need people who wake up every day focusing on this, what we're talking about here. So value addition, mechanization, they are all interlinked in a big way. But I think really, if we put our heads together as a nation, we should be able to achieve that.
Okay. I find it very interesting that you are asking if we can have a department that is particularly focusing on traditional foods. Would you want to add more why you would provide such a recommendation? Because I see that it might have an issue of resources. Would you want to say more about it?
Thank you. Yes, I've seen other countries, if you go to Bolivia and others, they actually have a whole ministry that's responsible for indigenous food. The best way for us to promote our food is to have people who dedicate their time every day, waking up, working on traditional food. It doesn't have to be treated as if it's an add-on activity. At the moment, if you look at our extension service, they are promoting maize, cotton, tobacco, and all these other industrial commodities. But small grains, they just mention it in passing. Even figures, when they quote figures, it's just, it's considered something like a subsidiary thing. So we think really, if government is willing, that's a political will issue. It should be possible. Anyway, if a department, people wake up, then they can take the whole entire value chain from production, where mechanization is, markets, all the way to consumption. That cannot happen if we are not really focusing on that, having a strong department focusing on that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhewa. Any parting words that you would want to share with our viewers?
Thank you very much. As a parting shot, we just say Africa is rich with diverse food, and the onus is on us as Africans to promote our own food. No one will do it for us. Other people are pushing their own food systems, and it looks like food is going to be the biggest weapon in the world, in terms of knowledge, in terms of even power. Food is power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our viewers. We come to the end of our very powerful segment. You just heard from Mr. Dhewa. He said food is power. So we are urging you, our policymakers, to put resources into the markets that Mr. Dhewa was talking about. It's only us who can invest in our own food systems. Our narrative about our food is being coming from outside. Now our narrative has to come from us as Africans. And this narrative is going to be shown by the way we actually invest and put our time, we put in our resources. Thank you very much. We come to the end of our segment.